Nos deux derniers intervenants. Alors tout d'abord Angus O'Neill d'Omega Bookshop, qui est également le vice-président de la ILAB, qui va nous parler du Missing Book Register, le registre des livres manquants, qui est vraiment l'outil de la Ligue pour lutter contre le trafic des livres et des manuscrits.
Est-ce que ça marche? Oui. Il faut d'abord m'excuser. Je vais parler anglais, mais je pense que ça sera mieux pour tout le monde. Mais je serai bref. Okay, the Missing Books Register. It hasn't always been called that. In the previous incarnation, we used to call it the Stolen Books Database. We changed that for two reasons, one of them serious, one of them frivolous. The serious one is that often we don't know whether books are missing or whether they have been stolen, and we didn't want to prejudice anybody's inquiries by getting it wrong. The frivolous reason for changing it from database to register is that we simply couldn't agree on how to pronounce database. It was a bit like tomato, tomato. Some people say database, some people say database, so we called it register instead. Basically, it does what it says on the tin, but I would really like to make a couple of points about the Missing Books Register. The first is that what you see, what's publicly available online, is the tip of the iceberg. We have quite a lot of extra material in the office, and some of it in our heads, and quite a lot of it not online. And there are three principal reasons for that. The first and most serious reason is that over the last few years, we've been entrusted with quite a lot of information from law enforcement authorities about ongoing cases. We feel very honored to be in their confidence, as you can imagine, and the last thing we want to do is to prejudice any investigations or any trials by being indiscreet, because the police would have something to say to us if we did that, and quite right too. The second point about why we don't have everything online is that those of you who work in libraries will know that it's not always easy to get the agreement of the governing body of your library to agree on what should go public and what shouldn't. We can all think of examples of this. But basically a lot of libraries are justifiably very embarrassed if they think something has gone missing. So what could typically happen is that they will give us details of the books that have gone, but they won't give us copy-specific information, although we do keep that on file, so that somebody might ring Angelica in the office or email me as security chair and say, we've been offered this copy of such and such a book, we're not happy about it. We can then talk them through it and say, well, does it have any book plates? Does it have any indication of library stamps having been removed? And more often than not, we can establish that way that it isn't the copy that's been reported to us. Of course, occasionally it does sound like it, and then we have a closer look, and then, frankly, the fun starts. And the third principal reason is that sometimes the information we have, some of which dates back decades, is simply not enough to identify a particular copy of a book. Imagine that you're working as a customs officer and you stop a strange car in the middle of the night, and it's got a couple of 500-year-old books in it. What a lot of people don't realize is that some 500-year-old books are actually very common, just as some 20-year-old books are very rare. We don't want to waste everybody's time by throwing up enormous quantities of false positives. We're always happy to talk to anybody who wants to know more. I would specifically refer all of you to look in the Missing Books Register website at a section entitled Guidance Notes, which is where we've thought quite long and hard about information which might be useful to law enforcement officers, to libraries, to collectors, to dealers. Some of it's frequently asked questions, some of it is just things that are not immediately obvious to people outside the trade and which we felt ought to be spelt out. One more thing about the Missing Books Register is that we are there to help. Quite often we will get reports of books that are missing or known to be stolen. If these come from librarians, they generally know the importance of copy-specific information, so they'll have all that ready for us, and sometimes they have got pictures of all the relevant library stamps and so on, and that is an enormous help. Other times, particularly if it's collectors who have had books stolen in a burglary, they need to be talked through it. And we can do that. We can say, well, surely there was something special about this copy. And they'll say, no, there's nothing special about it at all, except that it had my Auntie Nellie's name on the flyleaf. And then we say, okay, what was your Auntie Nellie's name? So we put that in there, and that often helps. But one of the things which we believe is quite special about the Missing Books Register is that all the input in it comes through people who are, to some degree, expert in their field. In other words, we look at the reports we have. If we think somebody's got the title of something a bit wrong, or the author, or the imprint, then we will query it, because we want the whole thing to be as good as possible. And it's that input that from our members, our affiliates, our committee, which would be our unique selling point, except for one thing, which is that it's not for sale. The Missing Books Register is free. And that's really what we're more proud of than anything else. And I hope you find it useful, and I urge you all to take a look at it.
Merci beaucoup, Angus O'Neill, de nous avoir présenté cet outil de la Ligue qui nous paraît primordial et que nous cherchons vraiment à défendre et à faire connaître. Et merci également d'avoir rappelé que le livre est aussi un multiple qui était fait pour être diffusé, et donc forcément on peut confondre des livres.